Okay, there we go. Are we back? Are we back? Hang on. I mean, it said the bit rate was in the toilet, but no, 4,000 kbps. Yeah, that's good. Okay, I don't know where they lost you at. So go back like one paragraph or whatever, and then start back up. That threw me so badly. Okay, okay. Hang on one second. I'm gonna go. All right, there we go. There you guys go. You're back. Okay. Jesus, what is up with OBS right now?
What isn't up with OBS?
Yeah, you're gonna
I
have
feel
to
like
go
that should
back.
always be a
You'll
thing
have to
you
go
check.
back to
Yeah,
the.
I know, I know.
Sorry.
Chewing on my lip, I fought back tears and stood. It wasn't the result I'd hoped for, but my task was completed. I got what I came for. Now I just had to clean up and go home. I inhaled, filling my body with strength once more, then began gathering the bodies of the snow buffaloes. It'd be difficult to haul them around with mere physical strength, so I used earth magic to pile them by the mountain of bones. You would expect other beasts to flock here, lured by the scent of blood, but maybe they knew a herd of buffalo was here. Or maybe I just got lucky. In any case, none came my way. I set fire to the heap of corpses, and the smell of burning flesh filled the area. It was a foul odor. I randomly tossed in several wooden logs. They crackled and snapped and popped, emitting gouts of smoke that drifted into the night sky. This would be my incense for the dead, their funeral pyre. For a while, I watched the smoke. There should have been thoughts racing through my head, yet for some reason my heart felt empty. I just stood there, vacantly gazing at the flames and the fumes they produced. Guess I should go home, I muttered a little later, after ensuring the fire was contained. If I left now, it would be dawn by the time I made it back to the city. Once the guild opened, I would show Mimir's remains and Sarah's earring to the members of Counter Arrow. Then I would sleep. Sleep was best at a time like this. With those thoughts in my mind, I turned on my heel and... I heard something. The faint creak of water instantly freezing over. A monster, I assumed. Was there a monster in these parts that did that? Regardless, the noise sounded distant, even if muffled by the crackling of the fire. I suspected it was something seduced by the scent of the snow buffalo's blood. Probably best to leave this area immediately. My mission was already completed. There was no need to linger. I had a bad feeling about this. Dread seized me. If there was something out there I couldn't see, something watching me, like a tiger prowling in the shadows. I surveyed the area, but there were no beasts in sight. The sound was gone as well. All I heard was the creaking of branches and rustling of trees in the wind. All sounds of nature. Just to be sure, I glanced up. Whoa! I instantly leaped to the side. A split second later, an enormous block came smashing down beside me, its mass sending the surrounding snow upwards in a surge. My vision was shrouded in a curtain of frozen powder, but my eye of foresight saw clearly what the object was. Ice. A frozen block of it had just struck the ground where I had been. What would have happened if I had been beneath it? I shuddered and glanced behind me. There it was, a shadow as big as a mountain. I had a thick trunk of, no, it had a thick trunk, doubtless hundreds of years old, with an overgrowth of foliage blotting out the sky above. Its roots, wide as my torso, creaked as they pursued me. An icefell treant? Having traversed the Demon Continent and Great Forest, I was used to the sight of treants. However, this was the first time I had seen one so enormous. Just how old was it? Treants grew in strength as they aged. This one was abnormally ancient, so I wondered how strong it must be. I gulped and retreated as its gigantic branches came swinging. The treant's gargantuan size made it impossible to avoid. I was sent flying like a bug swatted by a broom and tumbled through the snow, my entire body coated in white powder. The treant stopped for a moment. When I looked, I saw something forming atop its branches. A flower? Fruit? No. Magic. It was conjuring another block of ice. This wasn't the first time I'd seen a monster use magic, but it was the first time I'd seen an enormous tree produce a gigantic slab of frozen water. Gah! I immediately poured mana into my staff and conjured a shockwave that slammed into my body, like a shard of splintered wood. I went flying again, successfully escaping the block of ice that came slamming down just a hair's breadth away, right where my body had been. A nearby tree let forth a resounding crack as its trunk fractured. As I toppled through the snow, I channeled mana into my staff once again. I was going to use Stone Cannon. I put everything I had into that spell and launched it at the treant. The creature was huge. There was no way I could miss. It was too huge, in fact. My Stone Cannon plunged through the air and made impact. A familiar blast echoed around me, but the icefall treant was still moving. The cannon I had poured my all into should have made a direct hit. Had the creature really sustained no damage? Dumbfounded, I looked at the treant, which was illuminated by the dwindling bonfire. Its trunk was frozen over, wrapped in a shell of ice armor. Smart of the damn tree. The shield had effectively weakened the impact of my stone cannon, which now lay embedded in the tree's base. So stone cannon had little effect, huh? What should I use instead, then? Fire? Or maybe wind? Water? What could I use to damage the creature? No, wait. If I couldn't assess my opponent's strength, then it was the wisest to retreat. It was at that moment, right as I was about to flee, that I caught sight of it. Entwined in the creature's roots was a human figure. I froze the moment I saw it. I recognized who it was. Sarah? For some reason, Sarah's body was visible at the base of the tree. Was she dead or still breathing? Treants usually killed their prey before draining them for nutrients, but some would just bind their target instead, gradually sapping their life. She seemed to be in a bad state, her body swollen and covered in bruises, but not wounded enough for me to be sure she was dead. Was she still alive or not? Something felt off. I narrowed my eyes and had a closer look. A number of corpses were tangled in the vast roots of the tree, at about the same latitude as Sarah. Some were decaying carcasses, including a completely desiccated luster grizzly. One thing in particular stood out: a snow buffalo. It thrashed about, caught in the tree's roots. Although trapped, it was desperate to get away, struggling to break free as foam bubbled from its mouth. Of course, there was no way it could escape from the sturdy roots, but its presence proved that this particular icefall tree took its prey alive. Perhaps Sarah wasn't dead then, just unconscious. How was I going to save her? The icefall treant was a tree the size of a skyscraper, with half its trunk protected by a barrier of ice. Frankly, I didn't feel like I could defeat it, even if I could use magic with a wide area of effect. Sarah could surely get caught in the blast. She wasn't trapped by ice, but could I really cut her free? Get her out and escape? While I was preoccupied, the treant continued its pursuit, its branches swinging at me, cutting flame. Cutting flame! My magic severed a block of wood from the branch as I retreated backwards. Next, it would send another oversized ice cube at me, and I would have to evade that as well. Just as predicted, a clump of frozen water came pummeling toward me. It was easy to dodge, of course, since I already knew it was coming. Up next, another attack from its branches, right then left. As I evaded the attack, I got a sense that something was amiss. I stared suspiciously at the treant in the at the treant. In the dark, I heard the familiar cackle of water freezing as the tree completed its next ice block. Could it be? Did this creature only have one set attack pattern? Launch an ice block, then use its branches to mow down its opponent? Was this just a repeat of that routine over and over? My suspicions were confirmed after dodging the next several branch and ice block attacks. Maybe it was hiding something up its sleeve. No, this was a simple treant. Enormous though it might be, it was really only a D-ranked monster. It was hard to believe it knew any other attack patterns. My cutting flame spell worked. My cutting flame spell worked. I kept that in mind and cautiously surveyed the tree. Nothing that the ice armor, nothing that the ice armor only covered, or noting that the ice armor only covered the thickest part of its trunk. If not for the darkness, I wouldn't have noticed that, or I would have noticed that instantly. But its ability to defend against my stone cannon had thrown me off. Can I do this? My opponent's massive size had me a bit intimidated. Still, I knew what kind of creature it was, and that it only had two attack patterns. While it was large, it was only a treant. I've got this, I muttered to myself before stepping forward. I evaded the ice block and used cutting flame to slice through the branches that came swooping toward me. I could have used a more effective type of magic, but I wasn't sure that the treant didn't have something else up its sleeve. The treant's weakness became clear as I continued. Due to its massive size, only a few roots were long enough to reach the ground. Once I realized this and used my magic to slice through them, the battle was won. Although it never attempted to escape, the treant stopped attacking me and instead froze in place, feigning death. I used that opportunity to get close while keeping my guard up, aware that it might attempt to crush me. But I got to it and cut Sarah free, dragging her back to safety. Sarah! Sarah! Her eyelids fluttered when I called her name. Huh? Who's there? She asked faintly. It's Rudius. Rudius? I came to save you, I explained as I hoisted her onto my back, beating a hasty retreat. While I'd literally cut off the treant's ability to attack along with its branches, there was no guarantee wouldn't come after me with its ice or some other attack. I gave no sign of pursuit. It gave no sign of pursuit. However, not even as I waded through the snow. It gave no sign of pursuit, however, not even as I waded through the snow. I kept running, quick as I could, until the treant was out of sight. It had been a few hours since we escaped the tree. Once we were clear, I used healing magic to tend to Sarah's wounds, which were severe. She'd sustained blows all over with frostbite crawling up her skin from her extremities. Her bones were broken in several places, and especially bad in her right thigh. The femur was snapped clean in two, and the surrounding area fiercely swollen. Most likely a complex fracture or something of the like. Healing required direct skin contact, so I had to remove her shirt and pants to press my hand to the appropriate places. I figured she would say something to me again, but she was silent. Perhaps as an adventurer, this was as normal to her as breathing. Mimir was also a healer, so he must have had to do this to perform his magic too. That said, she crawled through the snow so her underwear was distractingly translucent. I endeavored not to peek, but try as I might, I couldn't avoid seeing it. I was hit by a snow buffalo's charge. Fell from a cliff, she suddenly said. Huh? I blurted, confused at first. That's why my leg is broken. Oh! I was sure she'd noticed me looking at her underwear, but she ignored that in favor of explaining how she was separated from everyone else. Perhaps the reason she didn't try to cover up was to reward me for having saved her. A sight for sore eyes. It'd been months since I last saw a woman. I found your earring among the bones the herd had gathered. I thought you were dead, I confessed. Eh? Oh, that? That earring is a magic item. If you stab the end of the feather into your opponent, they'll be caught in an illusion for a short time, explained Sarah, touching a hand to her ear. I might have made it if not for landing in that icefall treant's territory. Apparently, after escaping the snow buffalo, Sarah had built herself a snow cave in an attempt to endure the frigid temperatures, using her arrows as an emergency splint on her leg. As she awaited all alone for help, the icefall treant happened upon her and crushed her cave with a block of ice, taking her hostage. If I had been in her position, I doubted I could have come up with the idea of building a snow cave, I would probably have frozen to death instead. Hey, are you about done? She asked, covering herself with her hands while I was busy mulling that over. Oh, yes, thank you. Why the hell are you thanking me? She mumbled to herself, her face red as she turned away and slipped her pants back on. Her leg had been broken, the skin pale and swollen, but now it looked healthy and supple. A leg worthy of gratitude. It was only natural that I should say thanks, no matter what the circumstances were. For some reason, I felt like something was off, like there was something missing. What was it? I was sure it couldn't be anything too big, but even so, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong with your leg, is there? Yep, it's fine. It doesn't even hurt anymore. See? She bent and stretched before me. If my healing magic hadn't failed, then what was it? I just have a sense that something's amiss. I told her, does anything about our situation feel off at all to you? Maybe it's about where I found your earring. No, since I dropped it, I wouldn't be surprised wherever you found it. Oh, but it is weird that you're here by yourself. Oh, no, it's just I heard Timothy and the others say that you were missing, so they went home after all, she said in realization. No, I didn't mean. It's fine, Sarah interjected. I don't blame them. An obvious decision, given the circumstances. So is everyone safe? No, Mimir is dead. I have part of him right here, I announced, lifting my bag. She took it from me and peeked inside, her face screwed up when she saw its contents. Then her expression gave way to sadness. I see. Does everyone already know? They seemed very sure of his death. I thought if I brought his remains back, then you could bury him somewhere close. Yeah, that would probably make Mimir happy. Um, at least let me carry this bag. Sure, I don't mind. Sarah drew her lips tight and hoisted the bag onto her back. In the end, I still couldn't identify the strange feeling I had. There was nothing to do except let it go. Even if I did figure it out, there was likely nothing I could do about it right now. Okay, then let's go back. Yeah, Sarah nodded. The meek way she did it was cute, almost like Eric. I frantically shook my head to keep from remembering her. Hey, Sarah called out after a few steps. I glanced back to see a look of relief on her face, smiling as if she might cry at any moment. Thank you for saving me. She was full of gratitude, and for some reason, I was captivated by that smile. I wished I could see it forever. Something within me clicked together right then. It was almost as if everything I had done up until then had been forgiven. I had been saved. It was strange that I found myself thinking that, since I was the one who had saved her. Oh, that's a cute smile. It was near dawn by the time we returned to the city of Rosenberg. Halfway there, Sarah suggested that we make camp, but I shot that down, anxious to get back. For some reason, the thought of just the two of us camping frightened me a bit. Ah, no, ah! Familiar faces were gathered in front of Rosenberg. 3 of them, in fact. Timothy, Suzanne, and Patrice. Rudius. And Sarah? Suzanne. The moment she spotted them, Sarah immediately took off running and flung herself into Suzanne's bosom. What happened? We were just about to go searching for you. Rudius saved me. None of them could hide their surprise as Sarah recounted what had happened. Once she was done, they all turned to me, wide-eyed with disbelief. So that means last night, after you heard what we said, you immediately took off? By yourself? Well, I mean, I started to say. And how were we supposed to feel if you died out there, doing something so ridiculous? My body curled in on itself as Suzanne scolded me. Sarah stepped in front of me. Hold on, Suzanne. There's no need to put it like that. Suzanne studied her, eyes wide with surprise again before she scratched at her cheek. Yeah, I guess you're right. Not like I have the right to say anything. it just threw me off. I mean, I am grateful. So first, I guess I should say thanks for rescuing Sarah, she said awkwardly. Maybe she was thinking that I could have just joined them on the search instead of doing it all by myself. Still, it was only because I manipulated the weather that I had such a smooth trip. I doubted the snow would have stopped otherwise. No, I should be the one. No, I should be the one thanking you. As the party leader, Timothy gripped my hand. He was solemn as he gazed at me, his usual soft smile nowhere to be seen. If Sarah hadn't come back home alive, I would have deeply regretted my decision. Thank you, he added. How should we repay that debt? Feel free to name anything. His hand felt hot, or maybe my body was just that cold. That's not necessary. You've all helped me out so many times. I meant that too. I really did feel like the members of Counter Arrow had always been there for me. That was also why I reacted on instinct the moment I heard Sarah was missing. Let's just consider us even, I said, managing to force a smile on my face. Timothy looked me over again, then grinned the way he always did. All right. Yeah, then we'll be here for you if you need it. Yes, likewise. Timothy and I exchanged a stiff handshake, and then, as if he'd just thought of something, he said, Oh yeah, Rudius. What is it? No, sorry, it's nothing. I had a slightly he had a slightly conflicted look on his face as he shook his head. I had a pretty good idea, nope. I had a pretty good idea of what he was about to offer me, but I had no intention of pressing the issue. If his question was what I expected, I would probably hesitate before ultimately declining. Well then, let's go home, I said. Yeah, we'll see you off. The members of Counter Arrow accompanied me all the way to my inn, as if it were only natural. It was still early morning, well before people began to stir. In the dawning light that gleamed off the snow as the sun made its ascent, the five of us walked together, frozen powder crunching beneath our feet. I was completely exhausted, as was Sarah. The other three surely had their questions, but they prioritized letting me return to my room. This is far enough, thank you, I said, looking back at them. Rudius, I'll see you around, Sarah shouted after, no. Rudius, I'll see you around, Sarah shouted after me as I went inside. She'd been up all night, come to think of it. Unlike me, who had spent a leisurely afternoon shoveling snow, she'd been trapped in a raging blizzard in the forest with a broken leg, beset with horrific pain. She had to be fairly worn out, too. Maybe I should have agreed to camping outside. But if we'd done that, we might have missed the others leaving Rosenberg. Things had worked out for the best. Yeah, see you. Make sure you get some rest today. You too. Will do. I waved at her and disappeared inside. The inn's lobby was warm, with a pleasant smell permeating the air. The owner had risen early and was already preparing breakfast. I left the first floor, which acted as a mess hall, clambered up to the third floor, and started a fire going in my room. Since it would take a while to heat up, I briefly opened the window to air the room out a little. From there, I could see the receding figures of Counter Arrow. At almost the same exact moment, one of them turned to look back. Sarah's eyes met mine. She moved her lips as if to say something. Her words were silent, though. I knew that because the others didn't turn. What did she say? Since I couldn't read lips, it was impossible for me to tell. I just waved back at her and watched her go. She looked happy as she turned forward and scurried after the others. I was hit by a sudden wave of drowsiness by the time I shut the window. Let's go to sleep, I decided, opting to lounge in bed and sleep until dinner. I felt like today, for the first time in a while, I could sleep soundly. With that in mind, I flopped over onto my mattress. Drinking some water. Chapter 5, Abrupt Approach. Spring came, then summer. Time passed quickly, and soon it had been a year since I first came to Rosenberg. I was sufficiently well known here now. People would speak of Quagmire Rudius, even in the small nearby villages. And yet, I had not heard anything of Zenith. Even so, I stayed at Rosenberg rather than move on to the next city. Good work again today. Good work. Nice job. Today I was raising my glass in a cheer with the members of Counter Arrow once again. You saved our backsides again. That's our quagmire. No. I was only able to do as much as I did because of how skilled you all are, I insisted. There you go again, being all humble. Come on, you were amazing enough to go into that forest all night all by yourself. Since that incident, I'd increasingly spent my time working alongside Counter Arrow. It was no coincidence. They were rather deliberate in inviting me on quests now. Initially, I thought it a quirk of good timing, but they were always there when I showed up at the Adventurers Guild, and always invited me along. Even someone as thick-headed as me eventually realized it was intentional. Inevitably, that meant I went on fewer and fewer quests with other parties. Previously, I'd only teamed up with Counter Arrow 1 in 5 times. That now became 1 in 3, then 1 in 2, and now 4 in 5. At this point, I was basically a member of their group. So you see, my father was a hunter, and I've been practicing with the bow. Oh, no, that's Sarah. Okay. So you see, my father was a hunter, and I've been practicing with the bow ever since I was little. That's why I'm using one right now. But it's a bit inconvenient as an adventurer, said Sarah. My father, my father was a knight. Apparently, before I was born, he planned to teach his kids swordplay if he had a son and magic if he had a girl. But I had more talent for magic than swordplay, so he recruited a magician named Roxy from Roa City to act as a home tutor for me. Ugh. One other thing had changed. Sarah and I were a lot closer. Now, when we camped during missions or went for drinks afterward, she would naturally sit down beside me and strike up a conversation. At first, these conversations were largely small talk, but lately we'd begun to talk about our childhoods and where we came from. That was how Roxy became my master. She was really incredible, too. Uh-huh. She was a demon, and yet she tried her best among humans. She was so straightforward, and she didn't let it get her down, even when bad stuff happened. Watching her, I see. Her mood would sour depending on the topic of the conversation, but in general, I thought we were getting along well. Sarah was from a village at the western edge of the Millbots region, close to the middle of the Asura kingdom. She was born to parents who were hunters and grew up helping them from an early age. One day, when she was about 10, monsters suddenly came pouring out of the nearby forests, and her parents were both killed. Orphaned and alone, Sarah was picked up by Suzanne. Suzanne and Timothy were in the same party at the time, but the other members were completely different. They were adventurers who had been sent from a nearby town to deal with the plague of monsters. A number of beasts was impressive, as were both the number of adventurers thrown at them and the injuries that resulted. The entire party, save for Suzanne and Timothy, was wiped out. Mimir and Patrice had been in a similar situation. Thus, Counter Arrow was formed from adventurers who survived after the horde of monsters in the Millbots region had been dealt with. Back then, Counter Arrow was only a D-ranked party. After Sarah became an adventurer, she helped them out while rapidly raising her own rank. Soon, she became an official member as well. She presumably already had talent for the bow, but her progression was still incredibly fast. Counter Arrow continued to swap members in and out in their progress to B rank. By the time they achieved that, there was hardly any work left around the center of the Asura kingdom. After bouncing around the rural areas, the members resolved to move to a more challenging location. They wavered between whether to go north or south, but they were already operating within the Donati region, which was close to the northern territories. The north was also Timothy's birthplace, and he knew the land. So in the end, they decided to head this way. Well, all that aside, Sarah was the daughter of hunters, huh? The same as Sylphie. I wondered where Sylphie was right now and what she was doing. When I er, when I heard the name Grey Rat, I immediately thought you were a son of one of the Osseran nobles, or noble families. To me, it looked like you were trying to run away because things didn't go your way back home. So she'd initially been prickly towards me because she misunderstood my origins and the reason I was doing things. Prejudice, in other words. Well, the name Grey Rat is famous in the Osseran Kingdom. I agreed. Still, you're not one of those gray rats, right? Yeah, apparently I am related to them. Oh, so you are. She pursed her lips. I mean, of course. I'm not nobility myself, so don't worry about it. After a brief moment, Sarah said, when those monsters came pouring out of the forests, the nobility came up with all these excuses for why they didn't send the knights. That's why so many died. The liege lord really did that? Yeah, that's what I heard. Oh, well, sometimes people use loss as an excuse to criticize the nobility. Perhaps there were other nobles preventing him from helping, I explained. Still, it was heartless. The ones who died were villagers. So that was why she had such contempt for the nobility. Sarah believed that even the children of nobles who had no hand in the matter, such as myself, would eventually grow up to commit such crimes. Even the no- Even the nobility have their issues, though, I told her, recalling how tough their positions had seemed for Philip and Saros. Philip had his schemes, but whatever you thought of the old man Saros, he'd cared about those he ruled over, though he had seemed kind of violent in his approach to things. Ultimately, those who ignored the people they ruled over were those who didn't live among them, particularly those residing in the capital. They had no concern for the region or its citizens and impeded those who might otherwise help. Saros was one such victim of that mindset and lost his life for it. Even so, I couldn't fault them entirely for what they did. The nobles lived in their own world and had their own battles. People tended to forget everything besides what was in front of them. Sorry, did I offend you? As I was preoccupied with such thoughts, Sarah reached out as. Oh no. Sorry, did I offend you? As I was preoccupied with such thoughts, Sarah reached out, as if panicked by my silence, and cupped her hand over mine. Her palm was tough and unfeminine, calloused by drawing hundreds of thousands of arrows. Still, her grip was strong and warm. No, you haven't offended me. I was just remembering my relatives. They were noblemen and died during the displacement incident. Oh, so that was it. I'm sorry. Even though you may not be nobility, you're still acquainted with people who are. Please, don't worry about that. I'm sure they're not related to what happened to your village. Although Philip had mentioned his brother's viciousness at one point, so perhaps the noble who'd held back aid from Sarah's village had been someone related to the Boreas family. Plus, the village was located in the Milbots region, overseen by the very Notos Grey Rat who Paul had run away from. It was highly likely that they were involved. That was a rather convoluted subject, though, so I didn't bring it up. Still, they died, didn't they? They did. Then that was insensitive of me. I'm sorry. I let her apologize, but really, it didn't bother me. Probably because the nobles she spoke of weren't anything like the ones I knew. Perhaps I was only lucky that Philip and Saros were good people. Oh, this is a slight change of subject, but. Yes? Actually, you see, I kind of want to try using a sword a bit. It's tough to use a bow at close range, so I thought I'd have Suzanne teach me how swordplay for starters. It was an abrupt topic change, but it made sense, given how awkward the previous conversation had been. This was what it meant to read the room, a valuable skill another girl I knew didn't possess. True, it's not like you can just take your arrows and just stab monsters with them, I agreed thoughtfully. Yeah, not that I'll have many opportunities to get that close as long as I'm in a party. That's why I've been using my all-purpose knife instead of a sword so far. But, well, no surprise, it broke yesterday. Sarah took out the blade in question and set it down on the table. True to her words, a third of the knife had broken off. It could still be used for shaving wood and the like, but it would be useless for battle. Huh, I figured your bow would be the fastest to break. I made the bow myself, so I can always make a new one if it breaks. I can use tree branches around these parts to make a pretty good one, Sarah explained. Bows weren't popular, so they weren't typically sold at weapons shops. However, since the town had an abundance of wood for use in magical implements and staves, she took advantage of that to craft her own. The same went for her arrows, of course. I wondered when she had found the time to make them, but then I recalled how she would whittle down wood with her knife before bed when we camped out. She likely had the feathers for the fletching prepared ahead of time, and crafted them whenever she was free. I saved up a bit of money since we had a run of successful missions lately, and I was thinking about buying a short sword. All right, she pressed on. So, Rudius, are you free tomorrow? Want to go buy it with me? You're an intermediate ranked sword fighter, so you can tell me the difference between a good sword and a bad one, right? Nope, I have absolutely no idea. But sure, let's go together. It's a deal, she declared, beaming. Oh? Oh, the two of you going off by yourselves? Now that's charming. A quick glance over at Suzanne and Timothy showed that the two were grinning. It was then that I realized what Sarah's invitation meant. It was a date. Meow. It had been a long time since I'd gone on a date. When was the last time I'd been on one? Actually, when was the last time I'd been on one, actually? It had to be back in the holy kingdoms of Millis when I went shopping for clothes with Eris. Back then, we based our purchases on people watching. On people watching. Speaking of clothes, the only thing I had was my worn out robe. I hadn't had time to buy anything new, and for that matter, I had no fashion sense to begin with. I suppose could just mimic the local street style, but unfortunately, there weren't that many fashionable people in Rosenberg to use as a reference. No, there was no need to be so particular about how I dress. I was just accompanying her as she shopped. We were only going out to buy a single sword. I couldn't get carried away thinking of it as a date. The two of us were getting along now, but that was all it was. I couldn't let myself think that she was interested in me, or that this might go somewhere. I wasn't a virgin anymore. Surely Sarah wasn't getting all primped up either. Like, yeah, let's just go at this like we usually do, I told myself. Be normal. Today I would be natural. Natural Rudius. Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's go. As I was preoccupied with these thoughts in the mess hall of the inn, Sarah came to meet me. Oh, sorry to keep you waiting. Let's go. As I was preoccupied with these thoughts in the mess hall of the inn, Sarah came to meet me. She was actually cute when I really looked at her. Petite, with a crop of smooth, short blonde hair and an inviting scent about her. It looked like she'd brushed out her hair. It had been pretty frizzy in our most recent mission together. Even her clothes were a bit different. She wasn't super dressed, but I could tell she had put in some effort. Her usual leather breastplate and arrow quiver were nowhere to be seen, and she wore light clothes beneath her usual jacket. Not quite the height of fashion, but very few adventurers had much of a wardrobe. She had really tried to be presentable. And now I understood just how dense I was. Apparently, she was interested in me. I suspected I knew the reason for it, too. That incident in the forest. Without intending to, I'd somehow landed myself on her route. On her route, whatever. It was only crisis bonding, I was sure, but at least knowing the reason brought me some relief. I didn't dislike her. She'd certainly been hostile towards me at first, but she had her reasons. She even apologized for her actions, though they never bothered me to begin with. Knowing she was interested in me stirred internal fear, but I wasn't entirely unhappy about it. I didn't have any particular strong feelings for her, of course, but if this was the way things were going, why not just go with the flow? I wasn't a virgin anymore, after all. Okay. No, calm down, I coached myself. It's dangerous to bite off more than you can chew. You'll just be repeating the same mistake as last time. You need to maintain distance here. What is it? Asked Sarah. Nothing. Let's go. Sarah stayed slightly ahead of me as we walked, still close enough to see each other with a sideways glance. It was an adventurer's formation, close enough to be walking side by side, with the ability to instantly move next to each other if needed. However, she was a little closer today than usual, close enough that our hands might touch. This is the place. Our destination was a weapon shop with a good reputation, the Remate Store, owned and operated by an enormous company headquartered in the Asuran capital of Aarhus, whose wares were largely imported from that kingdom. The company hadn't been so well known until recently, when the quality of their imports increased sharply and their stores rapidly grew in popularity. In fact, the owner of the carriage I rode on when I left the Asura kingdom must have been bringing merchandise to this very shop. Although the storefront looked rather ordinary, it would be a bit intimidating for adventurers. This place looks expensive, I commented. Yeah, but I have the money, so I figured I'd buy something decent. The production of magical implements in Basharant was booming. As long as you could pay a fair price, you could get better quality items here than you could in Asura. But on the other hand, the selection was limited. I guess she picked this shop for the variety of its imports from the Asura kingdom. The value of a good short sword couldn't be underestimated. When worst came to worst, a secondary weapon like that could save your life. Welcome! One of the shop's employees greeted us energetically when we entered. A plethora of weapons lay before us. The majority were long swords, but there were also staves, whips, and blunt weapons such as clubs and maces as well. The only things missing were weapons such as lances or spears. The people in this world avoided those, considering them devil's weapons, due to their use by the spirit tribe. As an adventurer, you couldn't afford to buy arms of such ill omen. We casually persuaded their selection and perused their selection and made our way to the corner where the short swords were kept. The high quality blades were displayed on the wall, while the medium quality ones were arranged on shelves. The particularly cheap, low quality ones were tossed in a box to be rummaged through. We excluded the most expensive from consideration. They were enticing, to be sure, with several enchanted ones among them, but Sarah didn't possess the coin for that. We were generally looking at the mid-tier weapons. These were made by famous smiths, and while they possessed no special effects, they were sturdy, sharp, and well-balanced. They cost a pretty penny, but they had the quality to match. As for the cheapest of the lot, they weren't bad if bought brand new, but if you weren't attentive with maintenance, they'd wear out quickly. With frequent use, they might last 2 years. Most people thought of them as disposable weapons. It's really hard to decide, Sarah said. It is your first time buying or being in a shop like or no. Is it your first time being in a shop like this? No, but as you know, I use a bow. Even my other short sword I bought ch- er, I, er, even my other short sword I bought cheap in secondhand at a street stall, and the bows I make myself. Sarah glanced over the option in front of her, carefully studying each one by picking it up to check the balance. The bows I make myself. Ah, whatever. I had a knife of my own as well, though I couldn't quite recall where I'd bought it. Perhaps I picked it up at random on the Demon Continent? Wait, no, that one was worn out. So I think I switched it out for a new one in the King Dragon realm. Maybe it was time for me to get another one. With that thought in mind, I perused a few of the short swords as well. Some had longer blades, some had shorter ones. Some were light, some were heavy. Short sword was a simple categorical name, but there was a lot of variety within the category. I hadn't planned on buying one today, but it might be good to have one on hand just in case. Hmm, maybe this? Or this? I wonder which one I should pick. Which do you think, Rudius? When I glanced back, Sarah had two blades in hand. One was slightly curved and 20 centimeters long, while the other was a straight 30 centimeters of steel. Let's see. I tested each one in my hand. There was a clear difference in weight and balance. After I had hefted them, I held up held up the short curved one. This would be better for shaving down wood for arrows. It had a more comfortable balance to it. That surely made that surely made it the better option for delicate work. But if you want it for fighting monsters, then this one is better. I handed the other sword back to her. It had a long, thick blade and looked like it would make great impact when sweeping from the side. I had no idea how strong it actually was, though. All right. Hmm. It wasn't especially I wasn't especially knowledgeable about swords, but she'd asked for my opinion, and it would have been rude not to give an answer. Don't you don't you primarily use it for making arrows? I asked. Yeah, but I want to be able to use it in an emergency situation too. Then why don't you buy both? Sarah shook her head. They would be too heavy. Plus, it would get in the way of using my bow if I had two swords hanging at my waist. Then what about buying a cheap knife for crafting arrows, which you can store in your bag? It could also be a backup weapon. Yeah, that might work. She started to say, but that's but that's kind of a lot of money. If you want, I could help you pay for it. Sarah shook her head. I'd feel bad. You could let me help out occasionally, I coaxed, taking some coin from my pocket. Honestly, I'd barely spent anything this past year. I only spent on necessities, and even then, I didn't use very much. My income far outmatched my daily expenses. Since I didn't spend anything on entertainment, I'd wound up amassing some wealth. I had enough spare cash to be able to buy a short sword or two. Okay, she finally agreed. But I'm just borrowing the money. All right, just pay me back when you can then. Sarah was pretty particular when it came to paying debts. Even when I said I would treat her to a meal, she would insist she was just borrowing the cash. I didn't really care whether she ever returned my money or not, but she was insistent on repaying it. So I'd asked her to compensate me in other ways instead, such as taking over my next round of lookout duty. Not that I minded her sincere attempts to reimburse me. Okay, Sarah really did look cute when she smiled. Afterward, we surveyed the other shop in the area, which included shops selling armor and magical devices. Among the latter was a shop that we normally never went into, full of exceedingly expensive wares on display. Adventurers didn't have much business with such stores. The products lining this storefront cost an entire year's worth of our income. So, of course, we just window shopped. Magical items in this world were largely things like household appliances or objects with beginner tier magic effects. Though research on these was progressing, the objects produced were relatively crude. For example, there was an item almost like a lighter that would spit fire if you channeled mana into it. It might sound like a convenient invention, but it was too unwieldy to haul around, being the size of my fist. Once we were done window shopping, we went off to have a drink. We selected a fine dining restaurant. Just kidding. We went to our usual bar. We were both adventurers after all, and Sarah wasn't well versed in fine dining etiquette. Such etiquette just reminded me of my past, too, so this worked better for me as well. Looking at all of that made me want a new breastplate, too, sighed Sarah. I think I'm going to stick with this robe. I've taken a liking to it. How many years have you been wearing it? 2 or 3 years, I guessed. It's definitely durable, she agreed, but the sleeves are starting to get a little frayed. Why not buy a new one? Hmm, I'd rather wait until it's completely worn out. Well, maybe I'll do the same then. But then again, mine is protective gear. I should probably replace it sooner. You never know what's going to happen in combat. We chatted about the day's shopping trip as I ate my usual meal and bean soup, plus a vegetable salad only available in the summer. Now that I thought about it, Eris hadn't been too enthused about this kind of talk. Neither of us were the type to spend much time shopping, nor did we have an interest in clothing. Eris wasn't terribly gifted when it came to words either. This was actually pretty fun though. It doesn't look like it's taken or no. It doesn't look like it's taken too much damage though, I commented, referring to her breastplate. Yeah, but I bought it quite a while ago, so it's been starting to get tight. Tight? What did that mean? She was She was about 15, but by this world standard, she was already an adult, although she was still in the process of puberty, and puberty meant the growth of certain areas. What are you blushing for? She scowled at me. I still lacked experience when it came to conversation, apparently. Sheesh, honestly, man. Even so, I don't think I fared too badly. Sarah didn't appear too displeased or exasperated with me. Ah, I think I've gotten a bit tipsy. I tend to drink a lot when I'm with, oh no, that's Sarah, okay. Ah, I think I've gotten a bit tipsy. I tend to drink a lot when I'm with you. Sarah confided after a few drinks. Really? Yeah, for some reason, I just tend to relax when you're beside me, she said, leaning her body against mine. Our shoulders brushed, and I could feel her body heat filtering through the fabric of her clothes. This is what I think it is, right? As in, I actually have a chance here? To test my hypothesis, I wrapped my arm around her waist. I expected her to be muscular, but she was actually soft and slender. Honestly, this simple touch was enough to satisfy me for the day, or so I thought, but then she wrapped her hand over mine. Eyes slightly moist, she glanced at me. Rudius? Sarah? Our bodies seemed to press even closer together. Okay, I decided. Let's do this. I figured it was about time to forget about the past and move on. I couldn't cling to it forever. Just a year ago, I had. Wait, what? Hold on. Oh, how did I go backwards? How did I go backwards 3 pages? What the hell?
Oh, did it jump?
Yeah, I'm not used to Kindles, or at least
Yeah,
when
it's
it comes to
okay. It's
this.
it's weird.
Where was I? Um, I'm currently on page 176. I'm just trying to remember where I left off. Just a year ago, I had resolved to look ahead and move forward. That meant leaving Eris behind and moving on to the next romance. That was right. Things with Eris were over. I needed to start a new chapter. There was no time to waste. I pulled my arm back and stood up. It's, getting late. How about we go back? I'll walk you to your room. Still, I had to be cautious. I couldn't let myself get all carried away again, like I did with Eris. If this romance ended like the last one, I might not be able to get back on my feet again. I needed to wait for the right timing. Right, Paul? As I mulled that over, we paid our bill and headed outside. The moment we did, Sarah suddenly pressed herself against me. I kind of want to talk to you a little bit more. Her words slurred together a bit. Her cheeks were flushed and her head swayed. Perhaps she'd drunk a bit too much, but then again, maybe that wasn't a bad thing. As for me, in case you were wondering, I hadn't consumed a drop. Um, well, shall we go to another bar? Hmm. She tapped her finger against her chin and glanced up at the sky. Then, completely nonchalant, she murmured, Can we go to your room? Did she understand what she was saying? No. Even if she didn't, I just had to resist the temptation. Wait. Maybe I didn't have to resist her. Just go with the flow, I told myself. Go with the flow. We had a great mood going just a moment ago. As long as she was fine with it, there was surely nothing wrong with just letting things take their natural course. Uh, um, well, let's get going then, shall we? Okay, she agreed, unusually meek as she smoothly linked her arm with mine. Her breasts, neither particularly large nor small, pressed against my arm. The heat from them felt like it would scorch me. They were so soft, so truly soft. The girls of this world, both Eris and Sarah, sure were assertive. Once again, I got the sudden and distinctive feeling something was off. What was the sensation, exactly? I felt like I'd experienced it before, but something was different this time. I mean, when I touched Eris' chest, I felt the spark, this feeling, and I wasn't getting that this time. Something was lacking. Well, no matter. For now, I would let myself be entranced by the softness of Sarah's breasts. Wait, no, calm down, I urged myself. As long as you can establish the right mood, you'll be able to feel her breasts with more than just your upper arm. I felt my heart pounding thunderously. My breathing didn't sound too erratic, did it? We're here, I announced. Yeah, you're on the third floor, right? Asked Sarah. We returned to the inn with our arms entwined, and the owner looked surprised when he saw us. He snickered and disappeared into the kitchen before immediately returning and tossing something my way. I caught it instinctively. It was a flask. I knew nothing about types of alcohol, but this was likely quite expensive. He waved his hand at me as if to say, good luck, then retreated into the kitchen. Hell yeah. That's a good bartender right
Yeah,
there.
he knows.
Yep. I studied Sarah's face, but it told me little. Her cheeks were no longer that flushed, nor was she so hammered that she'd lost consciousness. I had no idea what she was thinking either. What? Hurry up and take me to your room, she urged. So I led her up the stairs. The inn was deathly quiet, with few people occupying its rooms. The steps creaked as we climbed to the next floor, and my heart hammered along, unbidden. Yep, my breathing had definitely grown erratic. Here, I said. Thanks for letting me in. Sarah entered the room without making any comments about my irregular breathing. I set the flask I'd just received on my table, then I began by taking off my robe. Wait, no. First I need to start a fire. No. It was already summer now. We didn't need one. I ended up taking off my robe after all. As I shuffled around furtively, unable to settle my mind, Sarah had already taken off her jacket, hung it up, and was now perched on my bed. That's right, my bed. Not the chair right beside it, but the bed itself. Felt like it was the first time I had ever had a girl sit on my bed. But that couldn't be true. Would you like something to drink? I've got alcohol and water. You have water? She asked, surprised. I'm a magician, so I can make it. Aha. Trying to stall for time, I filled the cup with water. Wait, had I washed this cup? I was pretty lazy when it came to that kind of stuff. Forget about that. Come over here, she said. Yes, going right now. I moved as if magnetically pulled and sat beside her. Right on the spot, she'd softly patted to beckon me over. Our bodies sat close together, insanely close. Way too freaking close. Oh my god. You know, Sarah began. Yes? I'm really grateful to you. If you hadn't come for me back then, I'd be dead. Yes. She just wanted to have a serious conversation? That's what all this was about? Our shoulders were already touching, and the only things I could see were the pale white skin of her clavicle and the swell of her breasts just beneath. Despite all that, she wanted me to try to have a serious conversation with her. Suddenly, she glanced my way. Our eyes met, faces so close that our noses nearly bumped. Her face filled my vision, and I found my reflection in the blue of her irises. That's why, um, you can do it. I shoved her down onto the bed. There was no etiquette, no manners. I didn't think I used too much strength, or I didn't think I used too much strength, though. I forced back my eagerness by reminding myself I wasn't a virgin anymore and moved as gently and kindly as I could. I acted meticulously, cautiously, so as not to make any mistakes, so the past wouldn't repeat itself. I laid her down, kissed her, caressed her, removed her clothes, caressed some more, kissed her again, and then peeled off my own clothes. That was when, huh? I realized. Huh? I finally realized what had been pinging wrong in my head all this time. Sarah's body was slender, toned, beautiful and white, with distinct tan lines drawing borders where her clothes had been. There was no issue with her at all. She had a gorgeous body, a wonderful body, one that left nothing to be desired. It wasn't like she had a stick of meat between her legs where there shouldn't be one either. No, there was nothing wrong with her at all. The problem was with me. My body was the one raising a red flag, or to be more precise, it wasn't raising a flag. It wasn't raising anything at all. It was completely unresponsive. What? Normally, in this type of situation, my member would be saluting proudly, as if it had been awaiting this moment. This was my son, my comrade in arms that had been with me for the last 15 years. Eh? And he wasn't standing up. We tried a variety of things. I tried stimulating myself. I tried having Sarah touch me. I tried rubbing myself against her. Still, it just continued to hang limply. Finally, once we were exhausted, we pulled away from each other and wordlessly maintained some distance. I sat in the chair while she lingered on the bed. My head was an absolute mess. This was the first time this had ever happened. Why? How? When? When did this start? This was totally weird. Why this, all of a sudden, after it had been so naughty and unruly up until now? What was happening to my body? My vision narrowed and my mouth grew dry. Only my heart continued to pound strongly as I sank into confusion, aware that my face must be pale as a sheet. I felt pathetic, anxious, and grief-stricken. Hey, Sarah called out. At some point, she had pulled her clothes back on. Not just her underwear and her underclothes, but the jacket she'd shrugged off when we first came in, too. She was no longer sitting on the bed either, of course. Now she'd wandered over to the door, where she stood with her back towards me. It's not like I had feelings for you or anything. Huh? She didn't turn around as she spoke. Her words came quick, as if to push me away. It was a way of thanking you. Yeah, to pay you back for what you did. So don't go getting the wrong idea. The only reason I even did this was because I felt obligated. What? Obligated? So the whole reason she spent time with me this entire time was out of obligation? She only acted so sweet to me because I'd helped her, and she felt like she owed me? It had nothing to do with liking me. Was that it? Bye then, she said as she opened the door and slipped out of the room. Wait! Just before she was completely out the door, I heard her mutter, "What a disaster." Stricken, I pulled myself back and swallowed my exclamation. Her footsteps down the stairs filtered into the room. I was at a loss for words. Despite everything, it had happened again. Where did I go wrong? I must have messed something up again, right? Had this perhaps been how Eris had felt too? Had she actually been entirely unwilling that night and merely endured her distaste until the very end for my sake? Why was this happening? Was this how things were always going to be from now on? It's cold. Feeling chilled, I pulled my underwear back on. I donned my pants and shirt and shrugged the robe back over my shoulders. Even then, I still felt cold. It was the kind of cold that froze you all the way to the core, all the way to the core. The kind where you simply couldn't get warm no matter how many layers of clothes you had on. It was the kind of chill that needed something else to drive it away. I guess this'll work. I picked up the flask I'd left on the table. Chapter 6, The Impotent Magician. An hour later, I had emptied that flask. Okay.
Okay, so what I was saying, OBS was muted on my end, was for him to go ahead and stop there because we're approaching the time, and it's better that we start with a new chapter than what we did to you and had you start in like the middle of a chapter.
Yeah, I mean, we figured it out.
Yeah, you're good.
Yes.
You're good. I think next week, considering how much time we went into in the beginning and everything, I'll let you continue on reading next week, and we'll just skip my week and then.
Next week is the last Monday of the month.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it is.
It'll be the week after that.
Okay, so the next time we read, it'll be your turn again, because
Okay.
I'm going to let you take my week, and then we'll have Sonic read the following week. So yeah, next week we'll be doing gaming stuff. I guess we could hop back into Satisfactory. I'm just not really sure what to do.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah. I'll be 100% honest. It wasn't you, Moon. I hate this portion of the story. So for I have you like I'm listening to the cadence of your voice and everything to get to make sure that like when you get to a certain point. But like yeah, this part of the story always makes me cringe, and I'm like, nope, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear this part of the story. Can we just forget
Oh,
that
I
Volume
mean-
7 ever
Can
happened?
we just get the fuck out of here?
Yeah.
I think like this part's bad, but I think it's like much worse in the upcoming, and that's mostly just because like Sarah doesn't know shit, and she's
Yeah.
acting like a total bitch.
I'm
Oh, yeah.
assuming
No,
that this
no,
also
no,
just
oh,
doesn't ever get relevant
both,
again later.
Both series were horribly at fault. What doesn't get
Yeah.
brought up again later?
I'm just saying, I bet this like encounter and everything just isn't relevant anymore from here on out.
Oh, it is.
It's not.
Probably.
It's not main topic stuff. Like it's not going to be like majorly impactful on stuff. But yeah, it gets brought up again.
Yeah, it comes back.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally, his impudency at this moment is like a leading cause for the plot. It's kind of
Well,
funny.
that's well.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah,
it's not his impotence. It's not his impotence specifically. Yeah.
I mean,
years later, he and Sarah encounter each other again.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So this
Mhm.
So
does
So
like they
this
do
does-
meet again.
This does come back around.
They do reconcile.
But they are both
Oh.
grown and like more
More
mature
mature.
at that point, and so they can
Yeah.
handle it. But yeah,
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
problem is,
yeah.
Sarah is 100% a child. Like she is
Yes.
very childish, and she is of the mindset that the world only has two sides. It's black or it's
always black
white.
and
There's
white.
no such thing as gray. Yeah, and she
Yeah.
hasn't learned.
There are no
She hasn't
shades.
learned. She hasn't
No
learned
nuances.
that. The problem is she hasn't learned that white and black aren't the standard; they're the extremes.
Yeah.
Something that is
Either-
black and something that is white is the extremes. It is varied shades of gray almost the entire
Yeah.
way through. That's the way the world works. It is 10% white, 10% black, 80% gray. It's the world that she has yet to come to terms with.
Yes.
And I mean, neither of them handle this situation well, but I mean, the fault ultimately lies on Sarah because she started this whole thing. Like the way that she treated Rudy pushed him into the situation that he ended up being in. And
For
to
a
be
while.
fair, Rudy should not have said what he said at all.
He was
Mhm.
drunk.
But a shitload
Yeah.
of alcohol will just make you do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
you
I
know
mean, there's
what?
a bad
Soldat was 100% a real win from stopping Rudy from unaliving himself.
It
Oh,
it
yeah,
happened
100%.
really,
Oh,
really
yeah.
fast in
Yeah.
the anime.
Oh yeah.
I blinked
"Knock,
and I
knock,
No,
had to
to
like
be
I had to
fair,
go back.
it happens pretty fucking quickly in the light novel too. Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
because like I had to go back because I was like, wait, what I miss?
Yeah, right.
You
'Cause
blinked and you
I
missed
just
it.
saw
I bet I
Soldat
caught
like
it.
grab his hand and I was like, oh, he tried to. Oh, okay.
No, I knew as soon as
'Cause
like he
it
moved
happens
his,
with like
the
no
knife with
dialogue. He
himself.
just tries to
he's-
fucking do it immediately.
No.
Also,
He tells him
second.
like, cut that shit
I
out.
sent
Yeah,
this.
but like he just goes. It's like, oh shit. Okay.
I sent this to Moon already, but I wanted you two, pardon me. I wanted you two to see this short as well, because you'll understand because you've read this portion of Slime. But I saw this last week and I was like, no, this is absolutely true. Like you think you know what Rimuru's rage is. You don't know until you get to this moment. This is when Rimuru just completely snaps. He's like, fuck everything. It's like,
Yes.
oh man. But
Wait.
yeah, I wanted to share that with you guys. But yeah, guys, we'll be back in 2 weeks with more Mushoku Tensei. Next week we're gonna be doing some more gaming content. I don't know. Could be Phasmo, could be Raft, could be more
Raft.
satisfactory.
I mean, we
I
already-
have it down as
Could be Demon-
satisfactory in the
Demon
schedule, but
Satisfactory.
Or demonologist.
could be Demonologist if we all have that. Yeah.
I know. I think it would be Shem who does not have it. I think everyone else here has it, but him. Same with Phasmo.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have Phasmo, Shem?
No, we talked about that last time. Remember?
I see. Alrighty. Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us all this time. We do appreciate it. That being said, we'll be back in 2 weeks for more. And Asha will be streaming tomorrow. And guys, do not forget to come by on Wednesday. Come and hang out with me and Moon as he experiences the beginning of season 2 of Haikyuu. Yes. And and then of course, guys, we'll have another brand spanking new anime church this Sunday, along with our first ever run through of Subnautica roleplay. So there we go. And the fun thing about the Subnautica roleplay is it's very flexible. If you miss a week or if you miss a time and you come back like the next time, just pick up where you left off and continue your roleplay interacting with all of us. Odds are we'll probably be like, hey, we missed you last time, all that stuff. So there's no need for anyone who is playing to be at the exact same place in like the story or what they're gathering and all that stuff. It's supposed to be a jumble. It's supposed to be a jumble. Yeah. But that being said, though, guys, thank you all so much. That's it for us for tonight. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Oh, no, wait.
Oh.
I always forget this because I was going to sign off. We need to raid somebody.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well.
Raid's here. Raid! Yeah.
Get raided, nerd.
Since we are ending this, I am being requested in another call, so I will catch you guys
okay.
later. Y'all have a good night.
Should
you
we
too.
raid? You know what? It's been a minute. Let's raid Yui. Oh. He calls him Baru. My guy. My guy. Don't you mean Beru? Beru. My God. Okay, he's talking solo leveling. Okay, we've got to raid Director Nasty. Let's jump in there, guys. He's doing Sasamaho today. So yeah, let's go show Director some love. since he's talking solo leveling with us. All right, guys, here we go.
It's been awkward.
Getting
Why?
it started. It's been awkward. Yeah.
Boy, yeah, it's not what I said. I don't know why. It's just like, bitch, that's not what I said.
All right, there we go.